All right, gentlemen, with the Assault after patch 7.0, we are now max prestige, so we're going to go through our prestige ranks, which order I think you should take them, just your fastest route for leveling, what weapons you should use at your early levels, as well as some builds. All of the new weapon builds, you're going to want to make sure you definitely check out that portion of the video because all of the weapon builds have changed, and as well as you have a lot of new weapons available to the class. And so you know, patch 6.0 class builds are still very good and very strong in the game. So just make sure you update your weapon builds though. So first up, we are going to look at our prestige ranks here. And the most important ones you need to know are these first three because you will not have your reset button until you unlock this fourth and final perk. So the order that I'm suggesting you take them in is your first perk will be Duelist, Perfect Parry, and Perfect Block window increases by 25%. I think that's the best one on the tree. Next up, we have Practice Aim, range damage increases by 15%. And then Fortitude, health increases by 15%. And then as I said, with this fourth one, it's not as critical because right when you unlock it, you can instantly reset it. But for me, Scrambled Targeting, if you're surrounded by 5 or more enemies, you take 20% less range damage. But there's another very good one in here, and that is Adrenaline Boost. After a perfectly timed parry, block, or dodge, you cannot take heavy hits or be knocked back for 10 seconds. So how I usually run Scrambling Targeting and Adrenaline Boost, as if I am running Perseverance right here, which gives me immunity to knockback while I'm doing my charge shots, then I will usually run Scrambled Targeting. But if I am running, perhaps I'm running like Knowledge of the Enemy for my extra extremist damage, then I will switch off and grab Adrenaline Boost so I have some immunity knockback and things like that. So, like I said, for this one right here, preference thing, but those two that I showed you, I think, are the best two to fill out ending your tree right there. Okay, and very quickly, when it comes to leveling at your early levels, when you're going through your prestige ranks here, the Power Fist I found to be the best at early levels. The charge shot version of it is very, very powerful now, even when you don't have any perks. So this is definitely the early stage that I recommend, the early leveling stage. I do recommend the Power Fist. Definitely if you're trying to fly through the content and do the hardest content, these are probably going to be your best option. The Power Sword did just recently receive a very nice buff to the power rake though, so make sure you try that out if you haven't, in the last couple days, because that just changed. Or actually, if you haven't tried it since yesterday, I think it just changed yesterday. And then when it comes to the difficulties you're just choosing whatever you can complete at a high success rate and whatever is just the most enjoyable to you. And that's really what I suggest when it comes down to going through your prestige ranks. Obviously, the higher difficulties you do, the faster you're going to go through it. But if you're just dying and not having any fun, that is the main thing. All right, so we can move straight into our charge builds here. So we have a high damage one and a defensive one. And then you're seeing that yellow dot. That is going to be a strong option, what's going to give your secondary 20% damage. And then when you tie that to your prestige perk, you're actually going to be at a 35% damage with your secondary weapon. And with the plasma pistol that is newly available, that is actually a very, very strong setup for the plasma pistol. And then you're seeing the weapons on the side there. I did now throw the power sword on the weapons because the power rake receives such a nice buff that, I think they buffed that thing by at least like 30% on the base damage of the power rake at the least. Because it seems like three power rakes and you can usually take down most majors in the game now, which feels incredible on the power sword because it was falling off so hard, definitely compared to the power fist, and it didn't even feel nearly as good as the thunder hammer either. So with this change, definitely go back in there and try that out. And then, like I said, for this right here, if you're having problems surviving, go with this defensive build. And then the high damage build right here is just going to give you the most damage output you can do. This is mostly set up for like an absolute run. If you're not running absolute, you're always taking your gun strike team perk because absolute is, that's where you're seeing the most extremists, and that's when you're going to get the benefit from having the extra damage on that team perk there. So other than that, all your 6.0 builds is still very, very powerful. So still run those for sure. And then we are going to go straight into our primary melee weapons here, and we'll look at these a little closer, a couple of them. Definitely the power sword since that's new, and also these builds, the very, very strong. They pulled me through all the difficulties at very low levels, but I'm going to have multiple builds coming for all of these weapons, because there are a lot of different changes with the perk system, so we can really set up a ton of different builds for a lot of different play styles, depending on how you want to play and, you know, what means most to your run through each operation. So when we're going to look a little closer here at we'll go straight to the power sword. I'll talk about some of these that receive some changes. So the ones I'm really looking for is now, definitely you want to grab this power rake, deals 50% more melee damage. They added so much base damage onto it that having the 50% added onto the added onto it is just very, very strong now. And then I wanted to make sure I'm grabbing all of my extra damage to each enemy type. And, you know, I really like the end of this tree here because you're grabbing for Terminus, Majors, Extremist, and then the Miners. And then if you do want more health with this sword right here, you're going to drop this Miners, and you will either grab your power style attacks, refill more contested health, or you will grab the speed style attacks, restore more contested health, whatever one is going to benefit you more. But if you're looking to drop one, the one to drop is going to be Miners if you want to pick those up. For me, though, I like to have this Miners on here because it just helps when I'm clearing them out in the power stance of the sword. So when we're going into the Power Fist here, for me, this is the top tier melee weapon in the game right now. It feels extremely powerful. The way they work the charge shots, to work on this thing, they made the first charge much stronger. And, you know, so it still helps a lot when you get to the second charge. It's a lot more stronger, but the first charge is very impactful. And that's why I think these feel a lot better than they did. And just with your jab, you can get to your charge shot very, very quickly. So this feels nice. And the main ones you're looking for on here is no matter what, you're going to want heavy preparation. This is going to make it 30% faster to charge up your Power Fists. And then another very one nice on here that I'm liking is Following Blow. So what this is going to do is after you get your charge shot off, you're going to hit another melee, and this is going to give you another power attack after your charge shot. You cannot charge this heavy attack up, but it is a heavy attack in the speed of a light attack. So this is a very, very good one. I like this combo. It does a lot of 1-2 damage when you get it in there with your charge shot. And then if you don't want to take this combo for whatever reason, then I would just add on this cannon punch instead. Okay, and then when we're talking about our hammer here, which I did not run the hammer as much as I normally do, just because the Power Fist felt so good, and then I had the addition of the Power Sword that I really wanted to get in there and try out with the class, which the Power Sword at first with the class was horrible, guys. So like I said, if you haven't been on since the other day, the Power Sword is completely different and feels a lot better if you're working in those power rakes. But right here with the hammer, what we're doing is you want aftershock preparation reduced by 30%. You definitely want that. I like to pick up my ground slam area of effect radius increases by 50% as well. Then you get your double ground slam, add on as much melee damage as you can right here on this portion of the tree. And then you are going to go for your aftershock gains additional smash. You do not get to use this quite as much as you want because you usually have to parry out of it, but it's still nice to have. And then we're going to finish up with Majors so we can just finish our Miners 20% just so we can finish them up really fast and get them out of the way. And then for the Chainsword, I don't run it as much on the Assault as the other classes just because it's available everywhere. And when I'm in the Assault, I'd rather just pick some different melee weapons. But if you're an Assault main, obviously you're going to want to jump into the Chainsword here, and it feels a lot better. And you're going to want to go with this double stomp here because this is getting affected by your charge attacks as well. So very strong. The Chainsword is one of the best versatile weapons in the game. It can do really good single target damage. It does good AoE damage. And then, it has the best blocking weapon. I would say it has the best blocking weapon in the game. Maybe the only thing that's close to it is the Thunder Hammer. All right, and finishing it up with our secondaries here. I still think the heavy bolt pistol is the best on the class, but the plasma pistol feels really, really good as well. The charge shot version, especially when you have the 35% added onto your secondary, it is very, very strong. You're gonna execute in about 3 charge shots. So this is a very good option for the class now. The Volkite, I haven't ran through this thing since yesterday, and it did get a I think it was a 12.5% increase on its discharge. So this weapon just got buffed yesterday. I'm going to see how it feels. I do not think it is going to outperform the heavy bolt pistol or the plasma pistol. The Inferno pistol, very good for minor clears. So if you're somebody who's having problems, see, that's what I'm saying with the assault. The Inferno pistol, I don't find it quite as beneficial, because all of my melee weapons basically take care of minors pretty easily. But it is a nice option to have, and I have some. I haven't done it personally, but I've seen some assault players do like 20,000 range damage with this thing. So you can tie it in with some of your perks and make this very powerful. And then I'll have a separate video just on the Inferno pistol and how we can really ramp up the damage on that thing. But overall, at the end of the day, I'm going heavy bolt pistol or plasma pistol. They both feel fantastic now. The heavy bolt pistol we got set up right there is basically to deal with like neothropes and things like that. And then the plasma pistol, like I said, if you have not used this weapon at all, you're going to want to level it up. And then as well as you're going to want to use it in the charge shot version. And this gun charges extremely fast and does a lot of damage. You just have to watch out for your ammunition on this one.